What is going on, Disney fans? My name is John Solo, and today we are once again discussing the shocking origins of a classic fairy tale. This week we're going to do the same thing with another Disney princess, Cinderella. Just like The Little Mermaid, Disney's Cinderella was also inspired by a dark fairy tale, this time one written by the Brothers Grimm. However, before we explore the original work, I am going to do a quick recap of the Cinderella story we all grew up with for those who might not remember it. So just sit back, relax, hit that like button, and let's dive in. Disney's Cinderella follows a young woman who's stuck living alone with an evil stepmother and two evil stepsisters. Her mother died when she was young, and shortly after he remarried, her father died as well. Because Cinderella had no blood relatives to look out for her best interest, her stepmother and siblings, who were jealous of her charm and beauty, decided to capitalize on this. They forced her into becoming the maid at her own home and recklessly spent the fortune they inherited from her father until there was almost nothing left. One day they learned the royal family is hosting a ball and inviting all the beautiful women in the kingdom, hoping to find a bride suitable for the prince. Out of fear that Cinderella's presence will hurt their chances, and because they're pure evil, they tear apart the only proper dress she had and go to the celebration without her. Thanks to some help from the animals living on her property and her fairy godmother, Cinderella's able to escape her house and ride to the ball looking so beautiful that her own family doesn't even recognize her. Unfortunately, at probably the worst possible time, the magic spell Cinderella's godmother cast on her starts to wear off, and she's forced to flee the party, leaving behind a lone glass slipper the prince uses as a way to track her down. The very next day, he sends out the Grand Duke to find the woman the shoe belongs to. After a good amount of trial and error, Cinderella is discovered to be the rightful owner of the slipper, and her and the prince live happily ever after. So that was how Disney decided to tell the story of Cinderella, and when it comes to the basics, it's actually pretty similar to the version by the Brothers Grimm. However, you'll definitely notice some distinct elements being different in this story, especially the ending, which I don't want to give anything away, but you'll just have to watch. So like Disney's version, the Grimm brothers story starts with Cinderella's mother dying and her father remarrying shortly after. Ironically, the reason he rushes into another marriage is because he thinks having a mother figure around is in his daughter's best interest. As you would expect, this doesn't end up being the case. The stepmother and stepdaughters, who are actually said to be quite beautiful in this version, treat Cinderella like a slave. They berate her, refuse to feed her unless she earns her meals, and take away all of her dresses, jewelry, and even the furniture in her room. She doesn't even have a bed. She's forced to sleep by the fireplace, which makes her constantly look dusty and dirty. Her unclean appearance from sleeping by the cinders is actually how she earns the nickname Cinderella. We actually don't even learn what her real name is. So one day, Cinderella's father is leaving town on a business trip, and before leaving, he asks her and her stepsisters what gifts he should bring back for them. As you would expect, her sisters ask for clothes and jewelry, but Cinderella has an odd request. She asks for the first twig to hit her father's hat on his way back home, and that is exactly what she gets. She ends up planting the tree where her mother is buried in the backyard, and she waters it every day, 3 times a day, with her tears. Eventually, it grows into a beautiful tree where birds can live. These birds sort of act how the animals in the movie do. In exchange for Cinderella taking care of them, they bring her anything that she wishes, which is something you'll have to remember for later. Elsewhere in the kingdom, the royal family is planning out a festival in the prince's honor. Just like in the movie, they invite every beautiful girl in the kingdom so he can choose one to be his bride. Unlike in the movie, the festival actually takes place across 3 separate nights. Of course, Cinderella would like to attend, but her stepmother has a plan to stop this from happening. After throwing a bowl full of lentils in the fireplace ashes, she tells Cinderella she can only go to the celebration if she picks them all up within 2 hours. This is where those birds from earlier come into play. She calls out to them asking for help with this impossible task, and they get it done within a half hour. Naturally, the evil stepmother is upset that her genius, foolproof plan didn't work, so she decides to throw 2 bowls full of lentils in the fireplace ashes and tells Cinderella that she can only go to the ball if she picks those up within 90 minutes. The same thing happens all over again. Cinderella calls out to the birds, they help her finish the task, but to her disappointment, her stepmom still says no. Honestly, I'm not exactly sure why she believed her at all. I felt like it was pretty obvious that she was lying. Anyways, here's where the story starts to get good. After her stepmother and sisters leave for the festival, Cinderella goes to the backyard and approaches the tree that she's been watering with her tears all this time. She cries out some sort of poem or magic spell and says, little tree, shake over me so that silver and gold may come down and cover me. Again, the birds come to her aid and bring her a beautiful dress embroidered with silver and gold, as well as some gold slippers. For whatever reason, the story doesn't specify where exactly the dress and slippers came from, though it does seem like somehow the tree is magic. Whatever the case may be, just think of it as like the original fairy godmother. Cinderella cleans herself up, puts on the dress, and after she's no longer recognizable, she heads to the festival where she's the center of everyone's attention, including the prince, who dances with only her all night long. However, because she wants to protect her identity, when the prince says he wants to escort her home and see where she's from, she straight up runs away from him. He does manage to follow her the entire way back to her house, but he loses sight of her after she ducks into a pigeon coop in her backyard and he decides to give up. The second night of the festival is pretty much the first night on repeat. The only difference is that she's wearing a dress even more beautiful than the last one, and when the prince chases her home, she disappears up a pear tree instead of a pigeon coop. Now for the third and final night of the festival, same thing. She's wearing a dress even more beautiful than the other two and runs away from the prince at the end of the party. Only this time, the prince saw that coming and set a trap for her. Not in a weird or creepy way, not like a trap, but like a trap. Think it with his brain. The palace stairs were covered in a sticky substance called pitch, which caused one of Cinderella's golden slippers to come off her foot as she ran away. The prince made sure to grab it, and the very next morning, he set out on his journey to find the golden slipper's rightful owner. Here's where the story gets even darker. When the prince arrived at Cinderella's house, she was nowhere to be found. However, the sisters were dying to try on the golden slipper. Unfortunately for them, the slipper just didn't fit. The older sister found that her big toe was just too large, so following the advice of her mother, she went to her room, sliced off her big toe, and came back with the slipper on her foot. The prince was overjoyed to find his bride-to-be and was going to take her back to his castle when he noticed the slipper was filling with blood. Realizing this was in fact not the girl from the ball, he had the younger sister try on the slipper, but she found that her heel was too big and cut off a chunk of her heel. Once again, the prince initially fell for it, maybe because he didn't realize that anybody could possibly be that crazy. I don't know, I don't want to call him dumb, I'm just trying to give him the benefit of the doubt. But again, he saw the slipper filling with blood, and he demanded if there were any other daughters in the house, they had to try the slipper on too. This is where Cinderella comes in. She tries on the slipper, it's a perfect fit of course, and she leaves with the prince to have her happy ending. But the story is not over yet. In fact, this next bit might be my favorite part. Despite being disappointed they didn't end up with the prince, Cinderella's stepsisters chose to attend the wedding as a gesture of goodwill. In reality, I'm sure they were actually trying to get on Cinderella's good side so they could benefit from her being the queen, or maybe they were just trying to steal the silverware from the reception. I don't know. Whatever their true intentions were, those birds that were friends with Cinderella were not having it. And while the sisters were walking to the castle, they flew down and picked out their eyes, causing them to go blind for the rest of their lives. And believe it or not, that is how the story ends. How'd you like it? Was the eyes getting ripped out your favorite part too? Personally, I wish they included that in the Disney one just to spice things up a bit, but I feel like I might be alone on that one. Let me know your thoughts on the story in the comment section down below, and make sure you hit that like button. Also subscribe for regular Disney content just like this, and if you know any Disney fans who would enjoy this video, send it to them. Thank you all so much for watching,